Little shop cleaning happened. It was a disaster. Still kind of is pretty rough in here, but it is way better than it was. Out here enjoying a little bone crusher. So, tank is done. Gonna kind of show you what I got finalized on this piece, and then we're gonna work on the back section of this thing a little bit more on this episode. This episode of the Fab Forms is brought to you by Kill Fab Clothing Company. Find all the latest Fab Forms merch at killfab.com. All right, so tank is done. I actually tested it for leaks. Everything's good, no leaks. It holds about 9.5 gallons, maybe a little bit more than 9.5 gallons. Almost 10 gallons is what it holds. Everything's done. All the brackets are made. Got tabs in the rear, tabs that hang out up front, and then some support braces up there that are going to kind of help with the diffuser as well. So that's all done. Obviously, it's not mounted. Got it put back in the car. Ran into a little bit of an issue. Yeah, that's not going to work. So I think the plan is just to do away with this diff cover. It's got one of those supported diff covers, really thick aluminum, and I don't really need it in this project. So I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna save it for maybe another project that I'm gonna do later on that's gonna need it. Just gonna put a standard diff cover back on that, and it's gonna give it probably a good inch more than I've got right now. And right now the rear end's drooped all the way out, which actually brings it back some. With it up, it actually had 3/4 of an inch, but I wanna be able to make this thing where, you know, I can put it on jack stands and not worry about it hitting the tank. So gonna replace that. That should fix the problem. Everything else is good back here. Got the pump kind of mocked up, seeing how the lines are gonna go. Initially, I was going to make the lines where they could disconnect back here with a like a bulkhead fitting, but I don't know that I'm gonna go through all that. Might just save my bulkhead fittings for something else. So I was gonna put like a bulkhead fitting up here somewhere where you could unscrew them, and then those lines would come with the tank and everything off. But since this space is so short, I think if I'm gonna remove the back section on this thing, I'll just take the lines loose here, right at the pump. I can take those up, stick them somewhere, and then this whole back section can come off. And then I'm not fooling with, you know, more fittings and brackets and extra lines hanging off and whatever. The one thing I'm gonna have to do though is figure out the wiring. So I'm gonna make the taillights actually come up on both sides, and then maybe connect into like a main harness up here. So I'll end up putting plugs on either side just to make those disconnect. I also added 2 more lights, so one on each side. So now instead of a single light, it's got dual bars, which I like a lot better. You see the sun beating in, it's because we're about to have a rad sunset right out the back of the shop. Just kind of drops right there. It's pretty awesome. Sitting here and work, kind of watch the sunset out the back door. Got a breeze. I mean, can't ask for anything more. I think I also mentioned it in the last video as well, about the battery bracket. I haven't got it mounted yet. I'll probably do that today, but I just wanted to show you with the battery in there how tight it is. Like I said though, this is the story really on this whole project is space. The good thing is that's the negative terminal, so shouldn't have any arcing issues. And then the way that I make the bracket is that this battery can slide out the front. So I'll probably put some kind of captured or welded nut down here. And then, you know, I can take it loose and the whole battery will slide forward. I can get it out, you know, put the terminals on, whatever, and then slide it back in there and mount it so it doesn't go anywhere. Because ultimately, I'm going to seal all this off from the radiator, including some of these gaps up here on the top. Anyway, I'm gonna get to work, wait on the sunset, finish this, I don't want to say it, because YouTube stuff, but all right, so here's the plans to attach a lot of this sheet metal to the, whether it's the chromoly tube or some of the small tube that I've got that outlines these brake lights. I'm going to use some silicon bronze filler rod and clean it up real good and kind of attach it in here. This stuff has a much lower melting point than, say, the sheet metal itself, so less likely to blow through, and then it'll give it some kind of gold character. I hope it looks good. We're gonna find out. Put the Big Daddy Ferret cup on there for a little extra gas coverage. Gonna kind of clean this stuff up, and then I've kind of spaced it out. One of the things I like to do, you could measure all this stuff and then, you know, mark it all, or I just like to grab something I've got in the shop. So I've got this little piece of steel, and then what I'll do is I use the end of it as the amount of weld that I want to put in there. So I'm marking like that, and then I flip it sideways, and that's the distance between the welds. So you can do like that, then like this, then like that, then like this. Kind of makes it easier. You just kind of keep this around, makes it easy to do stuff. And it's spaced out pretty evenly on both sides. Apparently, they're not the exact dimension, don't tell nobody, but it should work out. So let's give this a shot. I've actually never used silicon bronze before, so this will be the first time you can watch as I do it. Well, I changed my mind. So I ended up just doing the whole thing. It turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Kind of filled in all those cracks, made it nice and smooth. A couple little dimples I want to kind of fix. And then I was even able to kind of transition over here in the corner. The cool thing about this is it's gonna kind of be my Bondo, right? Since I'm not painting this thing and I need to fill any imperfections, I think this is what I'm gonna use. Now you'll see it, you're gonna see it everywhere, but that's okay. That's kind of the intent of the build, is I want you to see the work. So I like it, I'm pretty happy with it. And kind of gets rid of that edge. So I'll probably do the other side, and I'll probably wait. Some of the sheet metal needs to kind of be tightened up a little bit, and then where the tank goes, right now I just got one big solid piece of sheet metal that goes over this thing. I'm gonna cut a hole in it, make a lid, so I'm gonna kind of wait on that. I might have to build a frame for that, so I'm gonna wait on that. But ultimately, that's what I'm after. The spacer thing is still a good tip, but just didn't use it. May use it up here. I don't know. This is actually brake line, and usually it's not the cleanest metal, so I'm not even sure that I'm going to be able to kind of braze that or fill it with that silicon bronze. One other thing I really like about the silicon bronze is that when you go to grind it off, so after you weld, like when I welded this, there was a pretty big bead across through here. When I went to grind it off, you can kind of tell when you're grinding the silicon bronze or the metal, because the silicon bronze itself won't make sparks. And so as long as you're not making sparks, you know you're not cutting into that base metal. You kind of just clean it up best you can. Then what I did, started with a flap disc, kind of knocked off the big stuff. And then I went over to these I call them Ziz wheels. So I went over to like a red Ziz wheel, finished it off with a blue, which didn't take off hardly any material, just took out the scratches. And then finally just hit it with a Scotch-Brite, which is my go-to. And yeah, it does make a mess though. And that stuff's not cheap, it's pretty expensive. That one turned out much better. The second one always does, I guess, right? You know how it works. It's actually thinner, so I'm gonna have to kind of work this edge back just a little bit if I want it to be the same. I don't know that you'll really notice, but I will. Those things usually drive me crazy. So anyway, next, I'm gonna try to do this rim on this thing. Like I said, this is brake line, so may or may not work. Give it a try. This stuff, so when you're welding it, it's kind of mushy. It doesn't really flow like you think it would, mainly because you gotta weld it really, really cold. You almost gotta cold weld it. Like if you were welding mild steel or something with some ER70 rod, an ER70 S rod, you know, you'd weld it hot and that stuff would flow in the puddle. And if you were welding it cold, it would kind of wouldn't flow out. That's kind of how you weld this stuff here. If you get it too hot, it starts to turn gray on you. Although when you grind it down, it still comes back gold, but a little bit different. Actually, on this one, I tried to like lay a nice bead, just to kind of see what it would look like, one continuous bead. And it just, you can't get that nice stack of dimes look that you would think you'd want on something like this. If you could, it would be pretty cool, but you can't. So, or at least I can't. So ground it down, cleaned it up. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Y'all go do work, son.